The containment field failed at 0347 hours, and the creature designated Subject Omega-9 killed 3 security guards before anyone realized it was trying to communicate, not attack. Xenobiologist Callum Drake arrived at the research station on Threshold Moon to find chaos. Emergency lights strobed red. Alarms screamed. And through the reinforced observation window, he could see the aftermath of what everyone was calling a massacre. "It has to be terminated," Commander Vrelix Thane said, his crin mandibles clicking with agitation. 3 dead. 5 injured. The subject is too dangerous to contain. Callum looked past the commander to the creature huddled in the far corner of the containment chamber. It was massive, 3 meters tall with 6 limbs, crystalline growths protruding from chitinous armor, and bioluminescent patterns pulsing across its body in rhythms that looked random to most observers but struck Callum as distinctly structured. What was it doing when containment failed? Callum asked. Killing my people. Before that. What triggered the failure? Vrelix pulled up the incident report. Routine neural scan. Standard procedure. We were mapping its brain chemistry when it became agitated and breached containment. Neural scan. You were drilling into its mind without consent or communication. It is not sapient. It is a predator. A threat. Says who? Says every expert who has examined it. Says the fact that it killed 3 beings within minutes of escaping. Vrelix gestured to the containment chamber. Look at it. That is a monster. An apex predator from a death world. Not a person. Callum looked. Really looked. The creature's bioluminescent patterns were pulsing in sequences. Regular sequences. Repeating sequences. Like someone trying to communicate but having no one understand the language. Let me talk to it, Callum said. Talk to it? It does not speak. How do you know? Have you tried listening? Callum pulled up his datapad and began recording the light patterns. I need access to the containment chamber. Absolutely not. That thing will kill you. That thing has been tortured by neural scans, imprisoned without trial, and treated like an animal despite showing clear signs of intelligence. If I were in its position, I would be dangerous too. Now let me in or get out of my way. Vrelix stared at the human with all 4 of his eyes. You are insane. I am trained. There is a difference. Open the door. If you die, it is not my responsibility. Noted. Now open the door. The containment chamber's inner airlock cycled open with a hiss of pressurized air. Callum stepped through, unarmed and unarmored, carrying only his datapad and a translator device that he had modified during the 20-minute shuttle ride from his ship. The creature saw him immediately. Its patterns shifted, rapid flashing that seemed aggressive to everyone watching from outside but that Callum recognized as something else. Surprise. Confusion. And underneath it all, fear. Hello, Callum said, his voice calm and non-threatening. My name is Callum Drake. I am a xenobiologist. I study other forms of life. I am here to help you if you will let me. The creature did not attack. It watched. Waited. Its patterns continued pulsing but slower now. More controlled. Callum held up his datapad showing the recorded light sequences. I have been watching your patterns. I think you have been trying to communicate. I think nobody was listening. I am listening now. Can you understand me? The creature's entire body rippled. Then, slowly, deliberately, it began pulsing a new pattern. Simple. Clear. Unmistakably intentional. Callum's modified translator beeped. It had detected structure in the light patterns. Not language yet, the sample size was too small, but definite communication. The creature was responding. Thank you, Callum said, his voice catching with emotion. Thank you for trying. I know this is difficult. I know you have been hurt. But I want to help. Will you let me? Another pattern. The translator beeped again, recognizing the structure as potentially affirmative response based on context. Good. Very good. Let me tell you what I think happened. I think you were captured from your world. Brought here against your will. Studied like an object instead of a person. And when they tried to scan your mind, tried to invade your thoughts, you defended yourself. Is that correct? The creature moved closer. Not threatening. Cautious. Its patterns pulsed in a sequence that the translator flagged as potentially complex emotional content. You were afraid, Callum translated. You did not mean to kill. You were defending yourself from what you perceived as an attack on your consciousness. That is a rational response. That is what a sapient being would do. From outside the chamber, Brelix's voice came over the intercom. Drake, what are you doing? Get out of there. I am having a conversation, Callum replied without looking away from the creature. Do not interrupt. He turned back to Subject Omega 9. They are afraid of you. They see your size, your armor, your strength, and they see a monster. But I see something different. I see someone who is frightened and alone. Someone who has been treated as less than they are. Someone who deserves to be recognized as a person, not a specimen. The creature's patterns shifted again. This time, the translator produced an approximation. Person? You call me person? Yes. Because that is what you are. A person. Sapient. Self-aware. Deserving of rights and dignity and communication. Not an it. Not a subject. A person. No one call me person. They call me monster. Threat. Thing to study. They were wrong. And I am sorry that happened to you. But we can change it. If you are willing to communicate. If you are willing to help me understand you. Then I can help them understand you. Can you do that? The creature was silent for a long moment. Its patterns dimmed until they were barely visible. When it pulsed again, the translator struggled with the complexity of the emotional content but approximated. They hurt me. They take my thoughts. They make me alone. Why would I trust you? Because I am asking instead of taking. Because I am offering choice instead of force. Because I see you as you are, not as what I fear you might be. That is the difference. That is why you can trust me. You are different from others. I am human. We have a long history of being called monsters by beings who did not understand us. We know what it feels like to be judged by appearance instead of action. To be treated as dangerous before we have done anything wrong. So when I see someone being treated that way, I recognize it. And I try to do better. The ones I hurt. They die? 3 died. 5 were injured. I am not going to lie to you. Your defense caused casualties. I did not want to hurt. I was afraid. They invade my mind. I defend. It is instinct. I believe you. And I will tell them. But you need to understand, they are afraid now too. They see you as a threat. They want to terminate you. I am trying to prevent that. But I need your help. I need you to show them what I see. That you are not a monster. That you are a person who was defending themselves. Can you do that? How? By communicating. By showing restraint. By helping me build a translation matrix so you can speak to them directly. So they can hear your side. So they can understand that what happened was a failure of communication, not an act of malice. And if they do not listen? If they still see monster? Then I will stand between you and them. That is my promise. I will not let them harm you without exhausting every other option first. But I need you to work with me. Can you do that? The creature moved closer still. Now it was within striking distance, one of its 6 limbs could reach Callum easily.
Everyone watching from outside tensed, expecting violence.
Instead, the creature gently extended one limb and touched Callum's datapad. Its patterns pulsed in a sequence that made the translator sing with recognition. "I trust you, Callum Drake.
I will help. I will show them I am person."
Over the next 72 hours, Callum worked with subject Omega 9, who he learned was named Thresher of Waves in its own language, to build a functional translation system. The species communicated through bioluminescence, with thousands of possible pattern combinations expressing complex thoughts and emotions. The more Callum learned, the angrier he became. Thresher was from an oceanic world where its species had developed complex societies, art, philosophy, and mathematics. They were peaceful by nature, living in cooperative groups that valued collective harmony. They had no concept of interstellar travel. Their world had never been visited by other species until a surveyor ship had detected what they thought were interesting biological specimens. And they had captured Thresher.
Taken them from their family. Brought them here to study. All without any attempt at communication.
Without any recognition that Thresher was a person with rights and autonomy. "They treated you like an animal," Callum said as he reviewed the research station's records with growing disgust.
"They catalogued you. They ran invasive tests. They discussed your body chemistry like you were a laboratory specimen. And nobody once considered that you might be sapient. Because I do not speak. Because I do not use technology. They assume I am animal. That is not an excuse. Sapience is not defined by technology.
It is defined by self-awareness, complex thought, and moral reasoning. All of which you clearly possess."
What happens now? Now I present my findings to Commander Vrelix and the research station board. I show them that you are sapient.
That you were wrongfully imprisoned.
That what happened was justified self-defense.
And I demand they release you.
And if they refuse? Then I go over their heads. To the Galactic Council. To human authorities. To anyone who will listen. Because this is wrong. And it needs to be made right. The presentation to the station board was contentious. Vrelix remained convinced that Thresher was a dangerous predator that had manipulated Callum somehow.
Others were more open but skeptical about recognizing a species with no apparent technology as sapient. "The defining characteristic of sapience is tool use and abstract thought," argued Dr. Prixus Venn, the station's chief xenobiologist.
"This creature shows no evidence of either."
"This person," Callum corrected sharply, "communicates through complex bioluminescent patterns that express abstract concepts including time, causality, and self-reflection. They have a name that translates to Thresher of Waves, suggesting cultural naming conventions. And they have expressed moral anguish over the deaths that occurred during their escape, demonstrating ethical reasoning. Or demonstrating learned responses from your coaching.
You can test that. Right now. Ask Thresher anything. I have built a translation interface. Let them speak for themselves."
The board agreed, reluctantly. They watched through the observation window as Callum activated the translation system and stepped back.
Thresher was now alone with only the interface to communicate through.
Subject Omega 9, Dr. Venn began through the speaker system.
"My name is Thresher of Waves," the interface translated from Thresher's light patterns. "I am not subject. I am person."
"Very well, Thresher of Waves.
Can you tell us about your world? Your species?"
For the next 2 hours, Thresher described their civilization. The floating kelp cities where their people lived. The communal songs they composed with light patterns. The mathematical concepts they used to predict ocean currents. The philosophical debates about consciousness and the nature of the deep waters. They spoke with eloquence that could not be dismissed. With knowledge that could not have been coached.
With personality and emotion and perspective that could only come from true sapience.
When Thresher finished, the observation room was silent.
Even Vrelix looked uncomfortable.
"This changes everything," Dr. Venn said quietly.
"If this is true, then we have committed a grave violation of galactic law.
We have imprisoned a sapient being without trial. We have conducted invasive research without consent.
This is a Category 1 violation of sentient rights.
This was an honest mistake, Vrelix protested.
We did not know.
That is not a defense, Callum said coldly.
You did not know because you did not ask. You assumed. And your assumptions led to imprisonment, torture, and 3 deaths.
Honest mistakes still have consequences.
What do you suggest?
I suggest you immediately recognize Thresher of Waves as a sapient being with full rights under Galactic Council law.
I suggest you issue a formal apology.
I suggest you provide reparations for the harm you have caused. And I suggest you return Thresher to their homeworld with whatever assistance they require to reunite with their people.
And the deaths? The security guards who were killed? Callum looked at Vrelix directly. Those deaths occurred during justified self-defense against what Thresher perceived as a mental assault.
You initiated neural scanning without consent.
Without communication.
Without any attempt to determine if the subject was sapient. Those deaths are tragic.
But they are not murder.
They are the consequence of your failure to treat Thresher as the person they are. The board debated for 3 days.
The Galactic Council was notified. Human authorities got involved. Media attention spiraled across multiple systems.
And throughout it all, Callum stayed with Thresher, helping them navigate a legal system they had never asked to be part of.
Why do you do this? Thresher asked one evening as they waited for the board's decision.
Why risk your career for me?
Because it is right.
Because you are a person who deserves to be treated as such. Because I cannot stand by and watch injustice happen when I have the power to stop it.
You could walk away. Let them handle it. Protect yourself. I could. But then I would not be able to look at myself in the mirror.
My species has a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. I refuse to be someone who does nothing.
Your species values this? Standing for others? Some of us do.
We have a complicated history. We have done terrible things to each other and to other species.
But we have also learned. Slowly. Painfully.
That recognizing personhood in others even when they look different, think different, communicate different is essential to being truly civilized.
I judged you when I first saw you. I thought, small creature. Fragile. Probably prey animal. I was wrong.
And the research station judged you. They thought, large creature.
Armored. Probably predator. They were wrong too. That is the lesson here. That judgment based on appearance is always flawed. That personhood transcends body shape or communication method. That we have to look deeper. You saw person when others saw monster. Why? Because I have been the monster before. Not literally. But in perception. Humans are from a death world.
We evolved as persistence predators. When we first joined the Galactic Council, many species feared us.
Saw us as violent. Dangerous. Monster-like. And yes, we can be those things.
But we are also capable of compassion, creativity, and cooperation.
We are complex. Just like you.
So when I see someone being reduced to their most threatening characteristics, I recognize it.
And I try to see the whole person instead. Thank you, Callum Drake. For seeing me. Thank you for being worth seeing. The board's decision came down in Thresher's favor. They officially recognized Thresher of Waves as a sapient being. They issued a formal apology.
They agreed to reparations. And they committed to immediately returning Thresher to their homeworld. But there was more. The Council has also ruled that first contact protocols must be revised, Dr. Venn announced at the public hearing.
Moving forward, any species encountered must be assumed sapient until proven otherwise.
Communication must be attempted before any research is conducted.
And entities like Thresher of Waves have the right to reject participation in scientific study. It was a complete reversal of previous policy. A fundamental change in how the galaxy approached new species. All because one human had refused to see a monster and insisted on seeing a person. Callum accompanied Thresher back to their homeworld. The journey took 2 weeks, and they spent most of it in conversation. Callum learned about Thresher's family, a pot of 17 individuals who must have thought Thresher was dead. About their culture's view of the sky as a mysterious realm they could never reach but always wondered about. About their hopes and fears and dreams. And Thresher learned about humans. About Earth's oceans and the creatures that lived there. About humanity's journey from isolated world to galactic community. About the mistakes humans had made and the lessons they had learned. You are not so different from us, Thresher observed. You also struggle with recognizing personhood. You also have history of treating others as less than they are. True. We are far from perfect. But we are trying. And that has to count for something. It does. Trying is first step to being better. When they finally reached Thresher's homeworld, a beautiful oceanic planet with no landmasses but thousands of floating kelp forests, Callum helped set up communications equipment that would allow Thresher's people to contact the Galactic Council if they wished. To choose whether to engage with the broader galaxy or remain isolated. The choice is yours, Callum said as they prepared to part. You can invite other species here. You can visit other worlds. Or you can ask to be left alone. All of those are valid choices. The important thing is that they are your choices. What will you do now? Continue my work. Study other species. Try to build understanding. Try to make sure what happened to you does not happen to anyone else. You will speak for those who cannot speak? I will listen to those who are not being heard. There is a difference. I do not speak for anyone. But I will amplify voices that are being ignored. I will look for persons where others see monsters. And I will fight for recognition of sapience wherever I find it. That is good work. Important work. It is the only work that matters. Thresher extended a limb, and Callum touched it gently, a gesture they had developed as a sign of respect and affection. Goodbye, Callum Drake. Person who sees persons. You changed my life. You gave me back my freedom. You recognized my personhood. I will remember. Goodbye, Thresher of Waves. Person who taught me that communication transcends form. You changed my perspective. You reminded me why this work matters. I will remember too. 3 months later, Callum received a transmission. It was from Thresher's homeworld. Through the communications equipment he had left behind, Thresher's people had made a decision. They wanted to engage with the galaxy. But on their terms. They wanted to establish trade, cultural exchange, diplomatic relations. But they wanted it to be voluntary, respectful, reciprocal. And they wanted Callum to be their liaison, their advocate. Their bridge to a galaxy that had wronged one of their own but had also produced someone who insisted on doing right. Callum accepted. And in doing so, he became the first official ambassador between humanity and the species that would become known as the Threshers. Over the following years, the Threshers proved to be remarkable members of the galactic community. Their mathematical abilities revolutionized navigation algorithms. Their philosophical perspectives offered new insights into consciousness studies. Their art, light patterns of stunning complexity, became treasured across multiple systems. And every new connection, every new achievement, was a reminder they were persons who had almost been dismissed as monsters. Who had almost been destroyed because no one was listening. Callum went on to work with a dozen other species. He became known as the xenobiologist who saw persons where others saw animals. Who listened when others made assumptions. Who fought for recognition of sapience in all its forms. But he always remembered his first success. The creature in the containment chamber that everyone called a monster. The being who was frightened and alone and desperate to be recognized. Thresher of Waves.
The person who changed how the galaxy defines sapience. Who forced a reckoning with assumptions about what made someone worthy of rights and dignity. And it had all started with one simple choice: to see a person instead of a monster. To listen instead of assume. To recognize that sapience wore many faces and spoke many languages and deserved recognition in all its forms. 20 years after their first meeting, Callum returned to Thresher's homeworld for a cultural festival. He found Thresher surrounded by family. The pod they had been taken from, now expanded to include new generations.
Callum Drake, Thresher's patterns pulsed with joy. You came. I would not miss it. How have you been? Good. Happy. Free. Living the life you gave back to me. I did not give you your life. I just recognized it. There is a difference. You gave me personhood. Recognition. Dignity. Without you, I would be dead or still prisoner. That is gift. Then I am glad I could give it. But Thresher, you gave me something too. What? You reminded me why this work matters. Why fighting for recognition of sapience is essential. Why we can never stop looking for persons, even in places where others see only monsters. You reminded me that the difference between monster and person is often just perspective. And that changing perspective can change everything. We changed perspective together. You saw person. I proved it. Partnership. Partnership. I like that. They stood together watching the festival, hundreds of threshers creating light patterns of breathtaking beauty. A celebration of life and culture and freedom. A testament to what could be achieved when someone refused to accept easy judgments. When someone insisted on seeing beyond appearance to essence. They saw a monster, Callum said quietly. I saw a person. And that made all the difference. Yes, Thresher's patterns pulsed with agreement. That is lesson. That is truth. That is what changes galaxy. See person. Always see person. Because every monster is person waiting to be recognized. And in the light patterns dancing across the floating kelp city, in the celebration of a species that had almost been lost to fear and assumption, in the friendship between a human and a thresher that should never have existed, the truth was made manifest. Personhood was not about form or communication method or technology level. It was about consciousness. About self-awareness. About the spark that made someone more than just biology. And recognizing that spark even when it wore an unfamiliar face, even when it spoke an unknown language, even when it looked like something to fear, that was the measure of true civilization. They saw a monster. But Callum Drake saw a person. And by insisting on that recognition, by refusing to accept judgment based on appearance, by looking deeper and listening harder, he changed one life. And that one life changed the galaxy. Because every person deserves to be seen. Every voice deserves to be heard. Every being deserves the chance to prove their personhood. That was the lesson of Thresher of Waves. That was the truth that Callum Drake spent his life demonstrating. That was the principle that could transform how species interacted with each other. See the person. Not the monster. See the being beneath the appearance. See the consciousness behind the unfamiliar form. And in seeing, change everything. If you enjoyed the story, like the video and subscribe for more. Thank you.